Since Afghanistan fell to the Taliban in mid-August, America has been preparing to resettle nearly 100,000 Afghan refugees over the next year. They'll be our neighbors. We can help Afghans feel more at home in a new country by taking time to learn about them, their history, their values, their experiences and way of life. As they enter our culture, let's also enter theirs. If you only know Afghanistan from the news, you've probably seen very little of the country's real beauty and diversity. An ancient agrarian society, Afghanistan is a land of high, rugged mountains, sweeping plains, and lush river-fed valleys. It's famous for its iconic mud-built villages, delicious fruits and nuts, and traditional sports like buzkashi. But it's also a land of majestic architecture and bustling markets. Afghanistan's urban centers have been at the crossroads of cultures and civilizations for millennia. Far from being isolated or unchanging, Afghanistan has a long history of exchange with India and Persia, Central Asia and China, Turkey and the West. Afghanistan has been the seat of empires, leaving a rich legacy of poetry, art, music, and scholarship. Afghanistan is as diverse ethnically as it is ecologically. There are 4 major ethnic groups: Pashtun, Tajik, Uzbek, and Hazara, and many smaller communities, such as the Turkmen, Kyrgyz, Baloch, and Aymokh. Sometimes Afghans identify more with tribe or region than with a broad ethnic label. The country's national languages have historically been Dari, a dialect of Persian, variants of which are spoken in Iran and Tajikistan, and Pashto. While Afghan society is a beautiful ethnic mosaic, communal prejudices have also led to division, hostility, and oppression. Like America, Afghanistan has its own troubled history of violence and injustice along ethnic lines. Language and ethnicity are sensitive issues for many Afghans. Afghan society has experienced dramatic upheaval over the last 4 decades, and rapid change since 2001. Kabul, the capital, grew from a few 100,000 residents to over 5 million. Today, smartphones are everywhere. Young Afghans are active on social media, eagerly following global news, pop culture, sports, and fashion. They also have personal connections to the world. It's rare to meet an Afghan who doesn't have close friends or family living in neighboring Pakistan or Iran, or in Europe or America. Many have relatives scattered across multiple countries. There's a large, vibrant Afghan diaspora. But most of this mobility wasn't freely chosen. Political turmoil over the past half-century has transformed life for Afghans, often in terrible ways. Until the 1970s, Afghanistan had a fairly stable monarchy. That changed after a coup and a communist revolution. This triggered cycle after cycle of deadly conflict: a Mujahideen uprising and a Soviet occupation, a brutal civil war, and a Taliban takeover in the 1990s. After the American invasion toppled the Taliban regime in 2001, Afghans endured a US occupation and a fierce Taliban insurgency that grew stronger every year. After a 2-decade struggle, the Taliban are back in power. Warfare has now devastated 2 generations, leaving no part of Afghanistan and almost no family untouched. Fighting has killed hundreds of thousands of people. Millions more have fled the country. Artists, intellectuals, and skilled professionals have also moved abroad. The brain drain has destroyed a wealth of culture and talent. As you welcome new Afghan arrivals, be sensitive to the pain they carry. Every one of them has lost a friend, acquaintance, or loved one to violence. Every one of them has lost their homeland. Family is everything for Afghans: social network, source of emotional and financial support, and access to jobs and information. With so much danger and uncertainty, family is one of the few institutions people can rely on. Extended family is even a pool for prospective spouses. First cousins are candidates for marriage. While most Americans prize autonomy and personal space, Afghans tend to consult family and close friends about their decisions. They're used to full houses and constant social interaction. If you're a newcomer or guest among Afghans, your hosts will make sure you're never alone for too long. They don't want you to get lonely. But America works the opposite way. Because of how we treat time and personal boundaries, Afghan arrivals can easily feel isolated here. As you make Afghan friends, remember to call and visit as often as you can. The best way to show you care is to spend lots of time together over tea. Speaking of tea, Afghans love to show hospitality. They're famous for being warm and generous hosts. At a minimum, expect to be invited over for cup after cup of green or black tea with nuts, dried fruits, biscuits, and candies. At some point, you'll be treated to a full meal. If you're really lucky, your hosts might prepare qobali palau, rice baked with lamb, raisins, and julienne carrots, or the meat and veggie dumplings called mantu and ashak. Show your hosts appreciation by coming with a big appetite and acknowledging the work that went into the meal. You can say, "Zahmat kashidin," you've gone to a lot of trouble, to which they'll reply that it was no trouble at all, and tell you to eat more. One way of thinking about Afghan hospitality is to see it as a form of giving and receiving honor. Honor is the currency of Afghan relationships. People exchange it constantly through little rituals of courtesy that acknowledge the other person's value and standing. You'll notice these from the get-go. After the basic greeting, Salam alaikum, Afghans will ask rapid-fire questions about each other's well-being and family, usually with a firm handshake, a hug, or cheek-to-cheek air kisses, depending on the degree of familiarity. How are you? How's your health? Are you well? Are you fine? How's your household? Both parties will ask and answer at the same time, talking over each other. The questions are formulaic and repetitive, as are the responses. "Thank God, we're fine," or "May you live." But it's an important exchange. You honor the other person by showing concern for them and their loved ones before anything else. Honor shapes every interaction, from showing special deference to the elderly, to reserving the best seat in the room for a guest, to using special titles for authority figures and people of influence. Parents, grandparents, doctors, and teachers all get extra honor. Honor also frames interactions between the sexes. For the sake of propriety and family dignity, unrelated men and women don't touch, and generally avoid eye contact and conversation, if they're in the same room at all. If you're greeting somebody of the opposite sex, you can put your hand over your heart as you say salam, instead of shaking hands. American culture values direct communication. Get to the point quickly and say what you mean. But to Afghans, directness often sounds rude and abrasive. Indirect communication is another way they show honor, avoiding the possibility of embarrassment or the appearance of unkindness. If someone asks for a favor or extends an invitation and you can't say yes, don't say no directly. You don't have to lie, but be as delicate as possible. Gently propose an alternative, or express a desire to fulfill the request, for example, God willing, without making a specific commitment. Afghans will read between the lines. You can't or don't want to accept, but you're too considerate to hurt their feelings with an outright no. As the asker, you might find yourself on the other side of the equation. Afghans might appear to be saying yes when they're really saying no, or probably not. They just don't want to offend. It'll take time, but you'll start to notice polite, subtle cues that signal reluctance, unavailability, or lack of interest. Part of indirectness is learning not to rush. American culture values punctuality and efficiency, but in Afghan culture, it can be offensive to hurry or be abrupt. If you're calling or visiting an Afghan friend and have business to discuss, don't bring it up suddenly. Take time to exchange greetings and ask about life and family. Let the conversation warm up a little before you turn to an agenda. Similarly, when you drop in on an Afghan friend, be prepared to stay for at least an hour and chat. Don't be quick to leave. There are a few other customs to be aware of. Afghans will commonly extend gracious offers that they don't expect you to accept. If you did, it would surprise and inconvenience them. For example, If you run into an Afghan acquaintance at the store, they might invite you to have tea, even though they're clearly busy at the moment. Or if you compliment something in your host's home, they might think you want it. And as a good host, they're obliged to offer it cheerfully. In both cases, you're expected to decline, understanding that the offer is merely politeness. Islam is woven into every part of Afghan life, from clothing and diet and holidays to invoking God's help, blessing, or protection in routine situations. The Taliban's hardline form of Islam is alien to most Afghans. Historically, Afghan Islam has been shaped more by Sufi mysticism, which emphasizes an experiential spirituality, tolerance, and compassion. Afghans draw much of their poetry and music from Sufi traditions. But there's a wide spectrum of belief and practice. You might meet devout, observant Afghan Muslims who pray 5 times a day, and you might meet Afghans who are agnostic and uninterested in formal religion. Most Muslims are happy to talk about God, Jesus, Scripture, or prayer. There's no taboo against discussing faith topics, so don't be afraid to have spiritual conversations. They'll also welcome your prayers. Afghans especially love stories and proverbs. Telling a parable or sharing one of Jesus' sayings or miracles can be a great way to connect. It's also important to remember that Afghans, like most people from Muslim societies, associate Christianity with the West. To them, Hollywood, Western politics, and American materialism are all part and parcel of Christianity. If you're an American Christian, it's important to differentiate cultural traits from the way of Jesus, and to distinguish negative, ungodly aspects of American society from the lifestyle of a true Jesus follower. Finally, although nearly all Afghans are born into Islam, not all of them remain there. Some of the Afghan refugees you meet might even be followers of Jesus. When you go to an Afghan home, how can you make your hosts feel comfortable? First, if you get a formal invitation, bring a gift, like fresh flowers or fruit, a home-baked treat, or dried fruits and nuts. Don't worry if you don't get a verbal thank you. Your hosts will probably thank you with a reciprocal gift at another time. Second, honor the customs of the home. Take your shoes off as you enter. Remember to observe the respectful boundaries between men and women. Dress modestly, covering your legs and torso well. Third, show your appreciation for your host's efforts. Come with a big appetite. Compliment the delicious food and, unless you have an allergy, eat or drink whatever you're served. Fourth, take it slow. The best way to make Afghan friends is to spend relaxed time together. Enjoy the tea and conversation, even if there are language barriers. Sit a while and drink more tea after the meal. When you have to leave, don't hurry. Leave gradually. Drop some tactful hints before announcing your departure, and thank your hosts again for their hospitality. The Afghans you'll meet have been through generations of trauma and very recent tragedies. They've watched their world crumble. History has taught them to be wary of foreigners who come with hidden agendas and big promises and then leave abruptly, so it will take time to build trust. America can be a lonely society for newcomers, especially for people who are used to tight-knit family and community life. You can help counter these negative experiences by being a warm, persistent, and reliable American friend. Let's help displaced Afghans make a home here from day one.